want to be quiet? Okay, so today we are talking about graphs of functions. This first one wants me to use the graph of the function to find the domain of f. Remember, domain is all the possible x values. Okay, so on this one, I am going to write my answer in interval notation. If I have a solid dot on my graph, it includes the point. And we use brackets. So those are the ones that are like squared. Are you that? Are you seriously gonna? Yeah, I'll give you one. Thank you. Do you want that one? I want a different one. You're big. No. Okay. So then, if I have an open circle, this one doesn't include the point. And I use parentheses. Oops, sorry. Okay, so for my domain, what is my smallest x value on this graph? -1. Do I include it or not? So square bracket or parentheses? Bracket. Then I'm going to have a comma. And then where does my x value end? Yeah, 4. And do I include 4? No. So this one gets a parentheses. Questions there? Okay. So B is asking me the function values at f of -1 and f of 2. This is asking for y values. Okay, so what is my y value at -1? -5. And then what's my y value at +2? 4. Questions there? Okay, so same thing for the range. What is my lowest y value? -5. Will someone close the door? It's unlocked. Do I include the -5? Yes, so this should be a square bracket. Thank you. Then what is my highest y value? 4. Do I include 4? Yep, so bracket. Okay. Anyone still need this up? I'm going to work through 2 with you because 2's a little different. Bless you. Okay. So on number 2, when it asks me for the domain, notice this goes off the graph. So this is going down and slowly going left forever. And it's also going down and slowly going right forever. So what is my domain here? No. Notice I have a hole in the graph. So I don't include -3. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do negative infinity. And you always use parentheses with infinity and negative infinity because they're not a specific number. And then I'm going to use comma. So where is my hole at? -3. And then I'm going to close that off with the parentheses because that -3 is not included. Then I'm going to use this U for union. And basically, it just puts 2 sets together. Okay, then I'm going to start back up again at -3. And this continues to go right forever. So that's going to end at positive infinity. So basically what this is saying is I go left forever until I get really close to -3. So numbers like -3.001. And then I stop because I don't include -3. And then I start up again at negative, so this would be like -2.99 repeating all the way to infinity. Questions on this? Yeah? So it's still going left and right forever. It just happens to have a hole. Any other questions? Okay, so what is my function value at 0? 3. And my function value at 3? -6. So then what do you think the range is here? Well, the 3 is, oh wait, this 3? Okay. So why didn't you tell me to include this hole? So if I'm looking at range, yeah, because I have a -6 on the other side for my y value, I don't need to worry about that hole, as long as it appears somewhere on that graph. Yeah. Any other questions here? Okay, does anyone still need this up? Okay, so next thing we have is increasing, decreasing, and constant. Basically, increasing is when you have a positive rate of change, decreasing is when you have a negative rate of change, and constant is straight across lines. So, this example wants me to determine the open intervals. So when it says that phrase, I'm going to use parentheses. Where each function is increasing, that's where I have a positive trend. Decreasing is where I have a negative trend, and constant is straight across. And then when I'm doing this for increasing, decreasing, and constant, I will always use x values. So if I take a look at number 3, this one looks like it might have a flat line, but it also tells me the function, which is x cubed. So I'm going to go to Desmos to graph this. So notice, the more I zoom in, the more it's actually curving there, and it's not a flat line. So this one is always increasing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this whole thing to show that it's always increasing. And then what are my x values that it's increasing on? So this is a calculator screen. So this line goes on forever and that line goes on forever. Okay, and then because the entire graph is increasing, I'm not going to have any decreasing or constant values in this one. Okay, so on the next one, it is increasing off the screen to right there. So what values are that for x? And then where does it stop? 0. Then I'm going to do decreasing next, just because that's what the problem says. You could do constant next if you wanted. So decreasing is going down. So where does it start going down? And where does it end? Infinity. And then my last one is the constant, so the straight across. Where is that happening at? 0 to 2. Okay, so on this one, I want to have that on my paper, so I'm not going up to the board. This one, notice it's increasing in 2 spots, right there and there. So when you have multiple increasing spots, you connect them with the U for union. So, questions on that? Yeah? Because it told us to use open intervals. Yeah, Luke? This one just doesn't have a straight across. Straight across line. So like over here, I had a straight across line. It just doesn't have it. Because our first one only had increasing. Whenever you're putting 2 sets together, so like we did on this one. Because there's 2 increasing spots here. So I put 2 sets together. And then the decreasing only had 1. I can't. I can kick her out. Okay, questions on number 5. Okay, then quiet down so I can go over the last one. So remember, a peak in a graph is called a maximum. Guys, a peak is called a maximum, If it's the highest point in a specific location, it's called a relative maximum. So if I take a look at number 5, this point right here is a relative maximum because it creates a peak, but it's obviously not the highest point because this keeps on going up more. And then the same thing with the minimum, it's a valley. And then this one is a relative minimum because it keeps going down forever. So number 6 wants me to use a graphing utility to approximate the relative minimum of the function given by this. So if you haven't already, go ahead and grab a calculator. Okay, so I'm going to get started. The first thing I want to do is type this into my y equals, which I did in first hour, so it's still there on my calculator. But you would do 3x squared. Remember, x is the button next to alpha, and the squared is diagonal from 7. Then what I want to do is I want to go ahead and graph this line to see what it looks like. So I press the graph button. And it is a U shape, so this is a maximum or minimum? Minimum. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go second, trace. So second is here, trace is the button next to graph. And then we said this one's a minimum, so I'm going to do 3 for minimum. Then it is asking at the bottom in black letters, left bound. What I want to do is I want to make sure I'm on the left side of this curve. So I move it over a little bit just to make sure. And then I press enter. Now in black letters at the bottom it says right bound. So I want to move it to the right of the curve and press enter. And then I don't know why, it likes to have you guess. I never guess, I just press enter a third time. And then notice it gives me a minimum value. It says x equals 0.66 repeating, and then y equals negative 3.3 repeating. So I'm going to round to 2 decimal places. So this is going to be 0.67, and then negative 3.3. So does anyone need me to walk through that again? Okay. So, you guys are all good with typing the equation in, right? So I'm going to start off by going second, trace, and it brings me up to this menu. We decided it was a minimum because it was U-shaped, so I press 3. It says left bound, so this flashing black dot, I want to move over, so it's on the left side. I press enter. Guys, be quiet. Then I want to move it till it's on the right side because now on the bottom it says right bound. I press enter. It doesn't matter where I am on the right side, just that I'm somewhere there. And then it wants me to guess. You just press enter a third time. And once it says the word minimum, that's my answer. Or maximum, if I'm looking for a maximum. Okay, questions here? Brooke, do you have a question or are you stretching? I'll go take a look at your calculator.